Look, I'm not going to tell you some cheesy advice like toss in your player's favorite character from a TV show or something wild like that, or give you that corny line we've all heard 1,000 times of the customer's always right and equate your players to some sort of customer. But if you feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect between your players and the story that you're writing, there is a way to bridge that. And I think that that's important to kind of look at where you can actually build some of those things that they actually really enjoy from their life, both outside of D&D and in it, into your campaign, so that they're more invested and more intrigued by what you're doing in your story, and you don't have to toss out your whole story for that. And that's where I feel like I took forever to figure this out. So today I kind of want to go through all the different things that I kind of learned through experimenting and see what other people have to say as well, and kind of grow together in this kind of venture to try to get your players on track with the story that you want to build with them. This can definitely be a daunting task, but you can make it simpler on yourself by starting out by asking a very important question, which is where can you kind of give a little in your campaign and where's too much to give? Because you don't want to compromise the integrity of your story, but you also want to sit down and actually have them kind of have key elements that they're really interested in the story itself. So it's a little bit of a give and a take, and it'll take some time to get used to. But my experimentation, there's a couple of simple things that you can do that take cues from outside of the game to actually get them more invested in the game itself. The first thing I kind of do is ask myself what my friends are interested in outside of D&D, and then I move forward from there. So like the first thing I'll do is if one of my friends is really into cyberpunk and just finished and I feel like they're kind of drifting away in terms of attention, I'll kind of change the setting a little bit. Maybe we'll visit this large kind of steampunk aesthetic city where they're having to jump across skyscrapers and figure out who the villain is or try to battle on top of these rooftops, and kind of put in some of these techie things that cyberpunk is known for, but not necessarily going all the way into running the campaign in the cyberpunk setting, which could also be a lot of fun now that I'm thinking about it. But another example is if your friend is very into Grey's Anatomy, like a couple of my friends are, maybe take them into a hospital where people are freaking out and running around, or into a battle clinic, and have them actually help other people and kind of heal them and move forward. And you can build these kind of connections with NPCs that you could see later down the line. And it's also really kind of feeding into their interests. If they've been really interested in this show for a while, then they're going to be super excited to kind of be in that hospital setting because it's going to remind them of their favorite show. And that's where I think it's kind of important to just pay attention to these little things that they mention outside of the campaign, because you can bring it back in. And another way you can kind of do this outside of pop culture references is with academics. So I have a couple of friends who are history majors that really like puzzles and ancient mythologies. So I'll take bits and pieces from history and I'll find what their characters would know about. That way they can have that eureka moment and they're like, oh my God, I know this. Or if you want to be a little more devilish, and I've done this a couple of times, if you have a player that really hates like math, you can definitely put in a math based puzzle and you'll definitely have their attention. Now, this one I kind of would err on the side of caution with because it can definitely get a little negative. But as long as you're kind of tastefully doing it, making the puzzle simple or something that they're not going to absolutely dread and not be able to get, but might be something where they're going to go, oh no, here it goes. That's going to help you kind of get that immersion with them. And I definitely have played with it a little bit, and I think that it worked really well at my table, and it's something that DMs should consider doing because it can be a really effective tool. A big thing for me when I'm doing this is making sure that it's random. Making sure that there's some randomness in there so that they're not always expecting these puzzles or for these little tidbits. And that's kind of what lets my story keep going. Now, I do incorporate my story in these. They're not like filler episodes in some TV shows where they're completely unrelated to the storyline. But rather, when I do them, I actually sit down with my players and I kind of weave the story in as we go. They might learn a piece of information in this area that otherwise wouldn't have been there. Or I kind of will sometimes just do filler episodes or filler sessions because it can be a lot of fun and it can kind of be interesting to see how they're going to navigate it. But just because that's something that you didn't have in your main storyline, you can still bring NPCs in from those settings and use them towards your campaign. And I think that's a really fun kind of trivia thing to do. And you can do it with magic items too. I've just found personally, I really like to take my players into random settings and see how they're going to role play their characters in these different settings of a hospital or a steampunk city. Because a character may have never seen that before, and it can be a lot of fun for them to role play that. So that's where I kind of move my sessions as a DM, is into that role play aspect rather than giving them items that kind of go off of these different interests. Another really great way that I found to kind of bring my players back into this kind of immersive role where I'm catering it towards them is really getting to know the background and the nitty gritty of their characters and what their envisionment is for it. And part of the reason that I do this is I'll actually usually take my players to their home city or region or a place that they've stayed for a long time. What's kind of cool is if I talk to them about what we both are envisioning for the city, I can actually let them narrate part of it. If they're walking up to their childhood home, they can start talking about, oh my God, I remember this from my childhood and the billowing glow of the city, and really bring themselves out and kind of have that freedom to talk. Now, not every player is going to like this, but definitely the players who are also DMs or storytellers, they're going to love this kind of stuff. And it's a way where you can have them narrate what they're thinking and you can alter it. Now, don't have them do everything for you when they're narrating their home city. Definitely explain the city for the whole table and take that time to write out that monologue. But little known places, definitely bring that out with them. And that's where I like to sit down with my players and actually talk about it before we go back to the city. Places they would know, places that are common, town squares. And the reason that I kind of like to do the town squares that way and actually do all of these local places for them is because it feels more compelling for them. It feels more compelling for me as a DM because now together we're building this place that is going to expand not just my imagination, but also my players' imaginations. They're going to grow the setting with me rather than me having to build it alone, which oftentimes can leave it a little more two-dimensional. And I think this has a lot, and I mean a lot of merit to it. It's something that is a little hard to balance, and it takes a lot more time outside of the campaign, but it's something that I feel like just absolutely reaps the benefits for you and your party. Kind of in this same boat is actually letting your players kind of grab things that they know about in metagame that relate to their characters. If you have a player who is super invested in cooking and loves watching the cooking channel, and or they just cook at home and they love to do it, and their character also knows how to do it because they have a super high survival skill or they have a cooking background or any kind of different traits that they would know about in metagame, I kind of like to incorporate those. So my friends who are history majors, one of them's really into ancient weapons, swords, pikes, and all of these different things that are less known. So when he was playing a battle mage character or a battle heavy character, I will actually kind of describe some of these pikes and swords in the mystery settings or in the more obscure things, and I'll let him talk about it, especially if his character knows how to do it, because that's something he gets excited about. He gets really passionate about describing them and how they're used, and that's something where it's really easy for him to role play, and it lets him really get into the head of this character and really get into the nitty gritty and talk about it. And when he starts going a little more technical, it actually really seems like this character is a battle hardened character, but it's something he's passionate about, that he learned about, that he is very interested in. And I think that's where this really has no other way to go about it, is if you can kind of sit down with your players and you know them better and you know all of the things they're interested in and you talk to them, you can even kind of surprise them every once in a while with some of these more tricky things. And I personally think this is one of the best ways to go about it because you can pick information you know they're going to know about. And that makes roleplay so much more rewarding for that individual. These are kind of the big things that I've found I really like to do. If you have any more, I'd appreciate if people leave it in the comment. And if you liked this video and you found some inspiration, check out our other videos. All I do is make inspirational videos for D&D here on this channel. So if you like this video, there's plenty more where it came from. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.